So hello, here we are again continuing our lessons on sugar paste flowers. So today we're going to make a calla lily. Now calla lilies are not flowers that you normally want to put on a cake live. They're poisonous. So sometimes I have a problem when people order calla lilies on their wedding cakes. However, in sugar paste there's no harm in them at all. So we're going to make a calla lily because a lot of people do like them. And they come in a variety of colors, so you never have to worry about whether or not it should be a white, just whatever the wedding cake or the occasion may call for, but they come in an array of colors. Beautiful, beautiful flowers, and very easy to make. So we're going to, again, soften up our sugar paste. So today we're going to make a white calla lily. As with all of our flowers, the first thing we have to make is the center. So for the calla lily, if you've ever looked at a calla lily, you will see that there are some leaves on the base as they're growing, but the flower itself, when you pull it out, has no leaves attached. It's just a center, really thick stem, okay? So the calla lily is a pretty heavy flower, so you want to use a heavy gauge wire. So when you're looking at your wires, the lower the number, the larger the gauge. The larger the number, the smaller the gauge, meaning the gauge means the width of the wire. So here I'm going to use an 18 gauge wire because I really need it to hold my calla lily. Now because the flower is really heavy at the top, I'm going to form it in a different hook. We made a shepherd's hook last time. Now we're going to make a T-hook. So I'm going to take my wire, my pliers, and bend them over till they look like the shepherd's hook, and then I'm going to squeeze it together slightly, and halfway in between that shepherd's hook I'm going to take it and turn it so now it creates a T, and you can see there I have a little bit of wire on one side as well as wire on the other. So now I've bent it and I have a little bit of wire on one side and wire on the other. So that is my T-hook. And that's going to hold on to my sugar paste much, much better. So now I'm going to use yellow because the center of all calla lilies, no matter what the color of the flower, is yellow. So I'm going to take a portion of sugar paste. Oh, I want to call it just about that big. I don't know what you really call it in size. It might be a small walnut. I don't know. So right there, I'm going to make it round, and once I have a ball, I'm going to put it in my hands and start to elongate it to make the center of the calla lily. You don't have to worry too much about it being perfectly shaped like the center. If you look at the flower itself, it actually has a little bit of a indentation in the bottom section. That I'm not so concerned about. We're not going to see that much of it, but I do want to be able to have a nice, round, narrow tip. Not a point, but a rounded tip, okay? So once established, a little bit of my glue, put some on my wire and take a little bit off. And now to apply it, I'm going to take the longer end of my wire and I'm going to push it right into the center of my calla lily center. Push it down as far as it will go without showing, and then close it up on the bottom. It's going to be very important for your calla lilies to make sure that you have a nice clean finish around the base. Because it doesn't have any leaves and there's nothing else, there's no calyx around it, you want to make sure that it's nice and clean. Okay? So once you have that established, you can finish it up a little bit. It's done. Now you're going to take it, hang it, and let it dry. That needs to dry overnight. So my calla lily center has dried. Now I'm ready to do the next stage. I'm going to take a little bit of my glue, and what I like to sometimes use is Q-tips. Sometimes you'll use brushes, but if you forget about the brush, then it starts to get hard. Q-tips, you normally have them in the house. They're absorbent, they hold the moisture, and so it's easy to be able to moisten the tips of your sugar paste. And you can also have a dry end, so if you put a little bit too much on it, you can take it off. So I'm going to use my Q-tip and I'm going to cover the base or the center of my calla lily just with a nice moist coating. I don't want it super wet. And then I'm going to take some cornmeal, some rough cornmeal, not fine, and roll it inside of that. And that is going to give me the look of pollen all over my center. Once that's done, I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to hang it and let it dry. So now we're ready to make the flower itself. And the flower itself is not very difficult. Actually, I went to Home Depot or Lowe's, one of those home decorating stores, and they have color charts, these little tags. So it came out, I looked at it, and all I could think was, oh my gosh, that's a perfect Calla Lily template. So I'm going to use this. And you can get it in whatever color you want, but this is the template we're going to use. And this is the side we want to see. There's going to be a longer side and a shorter side for our Calla Lily. So after I've massaged my paste, I'm going to put it on my board. I'm going to use my roller, and I'm going to roll the paste out fairly thin. Don't want it thick. We don't want it to look like cutout flowers. We want them to look realistic. You can use a spatula to be able to pick up the paste. If it feels like it's getting a little sticky, just put a little bit of shortening on it, and it will roll beautifully. I always like to make sure that I pick it up and then lay it back down. That way I don't have difficulty removing it later. So now I'm going to take my template, I'm going to put it right in the middle of my paste, and I'm going to use a clean X-Acto knife. And you can use a knife itself, just something that's sharp. And I'm going to cut along my paste. I'm going to cut out the shape of my Calla Lily. Pull the rest of the sugar away. Always take your paste, roll it up, keep it to dry, keep it moist. So now that that's done, I'll take my form away. And this one I did not wrap, but you can take these and wrap them in plastic wrap to keep them from ever becoming moist and soft. So once done, I'm going to use my foam board. And this paste feels just a little moist, so I'm going to take my cornstarch and just slightly pat it out so that it stays dry. I don't want it sticking to my foam board. One other thing you should always remember about your foam board is you want to keep it as clean as possible. So try not to put any moisture on it. If you're going to put moisture, move to your hardboard. So right here we're going to do the same thing, thin out our sides. So a little gentle pressure. This paste is a little. If you ever feel your paste is a little too moist, you can always work a little bit more sugar into it to dry it out, because sugar, or confectioner's sugar, 10x sugar as it's called, has 3% cornstarch in there. So again, a little gentle pressure to get your edges thin. And you can give your Calla Lily a little ruffle if you'd like. Some of them do, or you can keep it straight. Again, you're going to go half on and half off of the sugar paste and work your thinness all the way down to the bottom. We're not concerned about this base, but just along the edges, we want to make sure that it's nice and thin. We want to have that realistic look to it. Once it's done, we want to take out that little curved look that's in the center. After you've thinned it out, it has a little curved look. Take that out by just pressing gently across the surface of the sugar paste. Okay, I'm going to move this right to my dry board. And now I'm ready to put them together. So I'm going to take my center that I made earlier, and has now dried. I'm going to take a little bit of my sugar paste and I'm going to put it on the middle section of my petal. And I don't have to go all the way down to the bottom because I'm going to place this halfway up. It all depends on the size of your flower center. If I have a larger flower center, it may go a little further down, but this is a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way up, and I'm going to take my left side, and I can use either my fingers or my spatula here, and I'm going to fold it over, and then I'm going to roll it to the other side. And then, with my hands, I'm going to open up my calla lily. So you can see that there's a little extra paste on the bottom. I want to really take my hands and press right along there, very closely, to the base, gently pulling it in. You want to do this very nicely because there's no other finish, there's no calyx on this. So you want it to look clean. I'll take a pair of scissors, cut that additional paste off, pull it from the bottom. Again, I'm going to save whatever paste I have left over. And I can use my ball tool just to gently smooth that out. It doesn't look like there's going to be much indentation, but once it dries and you go to powder it, it shows everything. So you really want to be careful about making sure that it's as smooth as possible. So I'll do that with my ball tool in my hands, and then I'm going to look at my calla lily, and I can take any kind of tool, something that's going to allow me to roll the sides back. You'll have to support it with your hands a little bit. And this very end tip, I'll give it just a little bit of a curve there so it curls back. And you want to think about a shawl collar and how it opens up gently from the edge of the flower. And once it's done, I'm going to take it and I'm going to hang it upside down and let it dry. So now we're going to dust it, and I have a variety of colors. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow for the center because with our flower we also have pollen, and pollen actually shows up in the plant fairly easily. So I'm going to put just a little bit with the same yellow that I used with my tulips. I'm going to use here. It's called daffodil yellow. And I'm going to put just a little bit on the inside. Remember to use a little cornstarch so you can control where your color goes. Because whenever we have flowers and they have pollen on them, the pollen often gets everywhere. So a little bit in the center is very realistic, as well as it gives depth to the plant itself. Now on the outside, our stem is just green. So we want to see some of that green creep up. So I have two little bits of green here. I have a moss green and an apple green. And I'm going to just brush those right on the base of my calla lily. And I can allow them to actually work up the sides of the plant a little bit, because if you look at your flowers, you know, your colors sometimes graduate. They don't just abruptly stop, they graduate. So I might put a little bit of a lighter green on the base, and a little bit more of an intense darker green around the bottom. Now in addition to that, I may want to have my calla lily have a really iridescent look to it. So what I can use is I can use something called a pearl dust. It has an iridescence to it, and I'm going to add that just to the white section of my flower. So in between uses, you can take that brush, wipe off any additional color. Of course, you want to start with your lighter colors first. And I'm going to jazz it up just a little bit and use what's called a little white sparkle. and put that right around the center on the outside of my calla lily. And you can see that it gives it just a little bit of a little special sparkle to it. And it makes the light catch it so that the white is not just flat. Once that's done, I can also give a little bit of more of a sheen to it. So what I have over here is a little bit of hot water. And I've allowed it to boil, and as it boils, there's going to be some steam that comes from that. When you apply steam to your sugar paste, it makes it very shiny. So all of these little bits of color that I've added through my sparkle are going to pick up even more with a little bit of steam. So I've covered it with a piece of aluminum foil, and I'm just going to make sure that I expose just what I want to a little bit of steam. So it's kind of like melting the sugar slightly. You don't want to hold it too long because it is sugar and it will melt. But we just want to make it look a little shinier than it did. And by exposing it to steam, you will get that effect. So I'll hold it just for a little while, and there. You can see that the flower is finished, and it looks beautiful. Now what I've also done is I've made another one in orange, just so you can see the difference, and a little bit larger. So you can make them in all kinds of varieties. You may also, if you want to, pick up some rubber tubing that you can slip over these to make them appear thicker. But since I'm not going to do that, and I know I'm going to put it in a cake, what I'm instead going to do is take my floral tape and cover my wire. So I'll break off a piece. Again, I'm going to start a little further down than I want it to be with a slight angle. Begin to roll the tape up and then push it all the way up to the top of my flower. And now I'm going to begin to cover the whole stem. Now if I want it to be as thick as a calla lily is, I'll have to go back and forth. But often we're putting them in wedding cakes. Nobody really wants to look at that thick stem. They really just want to look at the flowers. So that's our calla lily, and I hope you enjoy it. So if you've enjoyed this, please let us know by pressing that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. We have plenty more to show you.